starting it. We're going.
We're live.
We're live. We're it. That's it. We're in. How's it going though? You doing good?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing fine. I'm so glad to have you on. I mean, I've been a big fan for a while now, and it's so great to have you on.
Yeah,
But
I appreciate it.
yeah. How's everything's going good? Yeah. Relatively.
Good is a relative term. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure other people you've talked to have all said similar things, but yeah, it's a crazy time. I think I've been just really trying to stay in gratitude as much as I can. So that's been kind of centering, yeah, for me personally, I'm doing all right. I don't have a lot to complain about. So I'm trying to remember that because it's like really scary time, especially in LA right now. It's scary everywhere, but we've been in it, and so it's just heavy, man.
Yeah. Tough times, but we're getting through them, right?
Yeah.
Got a PMA, right? Positive mental attitude, as they say. I'm not one who says it, but I mean, people do say that.
Yes, they do.
It's
so
common.
do I sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, on occasion, if you're really in a rush, you gotta abbreviate some stuff. Let me turn that off. I'm so sorry about that. We gotta restart it. That's it. All right, back from one. No, I'm just kidding. But, no, I'm kidding. I wouldn't put you through that. But anyways, let's just jump right in it. So what attracted you to drumming? I mean, you're well known for your drumming skills.
Yeah, I think for me, like I've always thought about it like I basically started playing drums because my neighbor across the street started playing guitar, my best friend, and it was almost a way of like, well, I want to play music too. He's playing guitar, I could play drums, and then I could play music. So I think drums for me have always been like a way to just play with other people. Like I don't think I do love the drums, but I've never been like a drummer where I'm like, it's always been a means to an ends for me. Like it's a way to work with people and like, even when I was younger, I was like, oh, this could be a way to like play shows or travel, and I think as I got older, like it was just a really good entry point to like work with songwriters and stuff. Like that always was more exciting for me than like the actual drums. You know what I mean? Like I do love playing drums, but I've never thought of myself as like a drummer. I think it's always been like a way to get in a room with people and like connect,
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand that. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to find your in somewhere. I mean, like in drumming is, I mean, I love it personally. It's great.
Are you a drummer?
Yeah, primarily.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I fiddle around the bass, but yeah, usually drums is the main mode. But yeah. But I mean, I listened to your songs in all of your groups, and I mean, like you could definitely have a certain signature sound. It seems like, I mean, and it's great. I think that's really interesting. I mean, I could definitely tell. Who do you draw like the most inspiration from, drumming wise?
That's always such a funny question because like for me, because again, as somebody who like I never felt like I really studied drums either, so I think for me, like 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 every day job I've ever had, people are always like John Bonham, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it's not, you know what I mean? Like I think for me, like it's always been like I'll hear a song that I really like and I'll notice like, oh, the drummer did something really cool there, like basically drummers who just like serve the song, and
Oh yeah. Keep in time. Sure.
Yeah, and just like don't get in the way. I mean, like, so a lot of times like drummers will come to me when I'm listening and I'll be like, oh, I love that they always seem to really have a personality of their own, but don't get in the way of the song. That's always what I've been attracted to. And then I have moments where I'll hear something and I'll be like, I should remember this in case anyone asks me what drummers I like, because you know what I mean? And then I kind of forget, but like I love Ringo, you know what I mean? Like
who's Ringo? I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you a little bit about this. So
yeah, please.
A band called the Beatles.
Lost
yeah,
me.
just like anyone who I feel like has a personality, but also like it serves the song, I wish I, like, but yeah, I really got to think of these answers, you know.
It's fine. I mean,
I
I'm just
really like, I'd say
yeah.
like, you know, Stella, who plays in like Warpaint and with Kate LeBon a lot, and she's played with Kurt Vile too. Like she like right now, I'm like, is one of the greats. And also, do you know that band Toys That Kill? And
Familiar
yeah,
with the name, not so
okay,
much
yeah,
the
this guy
music. Yeah.
Jimmy. Those are like two drummers I see, and I'm like, that is just so viscerally exciting. I'd probably say that for now. But you know, like,
It's always
yeah,
changing. It's always changing. Yeah, of course.
yeah. I've never like wanted to emulate some kind of stuff. Oh, and you know, when I was younger, this guy Aaron Comet Bus, who is in a lot of Bay Area punk bands, he's also a writer. That was big for me too. Like, he always like put his personality into bands in this really cool way, I thought, and that was a big influence for me.
Yeah. Where are you originally from?
I grew up on Long Island. So I'm from New York, and then I lived in Brooklyn for a long time, and then moved out here 7 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Very nice. So, I mean, New York based. What was some of your first bands that you started? I mean, you mentioned your neighbor. Did that ever ferment
Yeah,
into something else?
we did our first band together called The Insurgent, and we were this punk band. I think it was a band for like 7 years. It was like a band from when I was like 15 to 22, and we played a lot of different. It was like anything we started to get into, the band just kind of sounded like that, you know. So it was like very like very chaos punk. I mean, honestly, right in the very beginning, like there might have even been a little ska in there, and then we just started listening to different music, and it would change. But I always look back at that band as like we just wanted to like connect and like travel, and like it was like, and we were like super politically active, so it was like very like tied into like radical politics and stuff. And it was like the band was just an excuse to like explore ideas and like just do crazy tour. We would just tour for like 9 weeks and play like 9 shows, you know, like, and just kind of like, it was like super, I mean, we were just like dumpster dive and shit, like
That's
sleep in the van
insane.
and stuff. And so
Wow.
it was like less of a band than just like a way to like throw ourselves into all these things that were exciting us, you know?
So you were going on tour with this band?
Yeah, we would do like crazy DIY punk tours, like, and just play houses and warehouses and like, yeah. So we would go on tour. I mean, but you know, it was like, it was more to just like travel and connect with other people, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there was like, there was this thing called Book Your Own Fucking Life. That was, I don't know if you ever heard of that. It was like,
No, please,
there was
please
this
explain.
fanzine called Maximum Rock and Roll, and they published this like guide for booking tours, and you would just call numbers like out of this guide, and they'd set you up a show in like Tulsa or something. You know, it was sick.
So you guys went far. I mean, you guys
Oh,
went
we
really
did full, yeah,
out.
yeah. We did a 9 week full US tour, which like to me like opened up my life. Like I'm like, it just sent things in a different direction, and we would just like, yeah, oh yeah, we it was crazy. I mean, it was like, you know, but yeah.
That is insane. So what? When? How old were you on this tour? You said 18 to 22, right? Or
Yeah,
20?
I think I was 19,
Okay.
and I was like going to college, and I left school, and we just like toured. Like I just wanted to like travel and fucking, you know what I mean? Just absorb like, you know, it's funny because at the time it was like super punk. It was like very DIY punk, but like even now there were so many things I pulled from that I bring to like the way I approach music now. But yeah, I mean, we just literally like, it was like dumpster diving. We would like scam, like try to just get free stuff and just, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like if they were throwing away pizzas or something. And then we would just like stay with other friends, like other punk bands that we had met, or we liked their music. And it was cool. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
but like
That's
music
amazing.
was very secondary. Like I'm proud of that band, but the tunes are not really there, you know, like, so, I mean, some of it's cool, you know, but I think it was just about like this explosion of like community and stuff, you know?
And that's on Bandcamp, right? Everybody could buy all the stream it.
No,
No,
no.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
kidding.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yes.
you know,
No.
I
Correct.
know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I should archive it better because I had like a million. Like I was always in like 4 or 5 bands, you know, like, and I, I never really like. I always loved it like Discord, like they just archive everything, and like I think they see themselves as like archivists now, and I've never been that good at that, but yeah.
I don't trust it. I don't know. I don't know who's running those pages.
Well, that's okay. You can.
Who's authoring the? No, it's great, and you can find a lot of neat stuff on there. They're not a sponsor of this podcast though, so I'm not going to speak.
I got it. I'll refrain from.
It's all about the money. So yeah. But that being said, McDonald's, it's so great to eat.
I'm learning so much about this podcast while it's happening.
They ask me to do it organically, and that's like my way of doing it organically. Even though I am a fan of Burger King, I'm shooting for them. Really, that's what the big bucks are.
I'm confused at this point. Yeah, but I'm rolling with it.
Yo, I know, and that's why I had you on. I know that you're really good at the improv. I know. That's what a lot of people don't understand about you. Is
Thank you.
You're at the Groundlings. I know that. Yeah. So, but speaking of my multiple bands, I mean, you started with a punk influence, and so when did you get in contact with the Babies? I mean, because that's kind of a shift in tones.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. That was just through the music. I mean, that's what's to me why it all feels so similar is like, in a way it's always been the same, which is just like, you're a fan of music, you go to shows and you just hang out and you just naturally connect with people because you love what they're doing. And then they're like, well, let's start a band, And I think like with that band, like we were all friends. Like Cassie and I had a band before called Bossy. And then Kevin and I had, jammed once with our friend Jamie, and it's funny because when I think of that band, it's not funny, but it all kind of happened in the wake of our friend Jamie passed away, and we had all played with him in a different context, and we all kind of knew each other through him. And I remember I got together with Cassie because we were going to do a posthumous release of this band Bossy that we were in with Jamie, and she was like, oh, I started like jamming with Kevin Morby, and I was like, oh, cool, like I played with him once, and it was really fun, and so it just happened that way. Like we had all had this connection through Jamie, but we had all, played together. And I mean, that's like how, like, again, like what I love about it is that's how it's kind of always been. Like you're all just kind of ping ponging off each other. And there's so much energy when a scene is really kind of burgeoning. And it was at the time. So, and the two of them, I just always I just knew they were great songwriters. I was so excited, cause at that point, Vivian Girls had like started like really playing shows, and I think they'd put out a record and I loved it. And like, I knew from the first time I played with Kevin, I was like, oh, like this guy's super talented. He was like 20 or like 19, and so I was just like, this rules. And what's funny is I was really kind of winding down. I thought I was winding down playing music a little bit. Like, I had just like crazy punk bands that did Insano tours, and I was like losing my mind. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I might. And I like, I started working. I was working on the New York Times. Like I got a job there, and I was like, cool. Like I'm going to kind of transition out of this and I'll be the stay-at-home person. And these two people are so talented. They'll just go on tour with their other bands. And, but then I just loved it. And then it just pulled me back in, so.
Yeah. Definitely. What were you doing at the New York Times? It
was such a funny thing where I got a job. I was doing moving jobs in like New York, like in a pickup truck. And then I did a job for a arts editor there. And I've always been like super into, like politics and history and stuff. So we chatted like a lot while I'm doing the moving job, and then I guess I wrote her an email and I was like, is there anything I could do there to work there? And then, so I was a news assistant or clerk as we were called. And like, it was literally just answering phones and like handing out photocopies. Like, but it was cool. Like I wrote sometimes cause you could like pitch stuff, so I really thought like that would kind of be my path, and I'm glad I had the time there, but it just wasn't, I always, I was leaving to go on tour and I was like playing shows like super late at night and then coming in like exhausted, and my attention was just elsewhere, so.
Sure. Burning the candle at both ends, I'm assuming. Yeah. I mean, that's how that works sometimes, but that's great. So what made you really fall into the Babies?
I mean, the songs were so good, I really am like, I just think the two of them are so talented, and it was just my like favorite band in a way that I'd been in, because like I mean, I loved all the bands I was in, and I always played with people I thought were talented. But there was just something that felt really special about the energy that like Kevin and Cassie had and have. Like they're just like people, you know, they're the people closest to me in my life still. But I just felt like really lucky. I felt like, oh, I'm glad I know how to play drums because I can like be part of this, you know.
Right.
Um,
And Brian is spectacular as well on bass. I mean,
yes, yeah, of course, yeah,
amazing, amazing. I mean,
yeah.
the whole lineup is
Thanks.
just great. So what? Yeah, no, I mean, no problem. Thank you for making the music that we listen to. I appreciate it. I think that you deserve the credit. But
No, I appreciate it. Yeah.
so you guys started playing shows. I'm assuming primarily around New York, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were literally the idea was to play like house parties and like warehouse shows because Kevin was playing in this band Woods at the time, and Cassie was in Vivian Girls, and like the idea of the band was like they were both touring so much, it'd be fun to have like a local band to just play like house parties and stuff, you know. So it was really like with everything. I think every band I've like started, it's always been like it'd be fun to play a show, you know. It's like very like innocent in a way, and you know. And then we had our friend Nate was playing bass for a while and we it just kind of came together really naturally. I think because like Kevin and Cassie were touring so much, so they knew someone who could book us a tour in like the UK, and you know, and it was fun to like, you know, I think there was an excitement for Cassie and Kevin's bands at the time, so like, you know, people were interested in what we're doing, you know, but it was like still what's funny, and we always talk about it, like it was a super DIY operation. Like we never, you know what I mean? We were funding everything. Like we just, you know, worked jobs and like paid it into the band, and then like we'd get to go on a fun tour, and like, you know, it was very much run that way. And then yeah, and then Brian came in and started playing bass, and like we did some more tour. You know, it always felt like a very like kind of like low key thing in a weird way. Like but the one thing I love the records. Like I think the songs really hold up, you know, and I think a lot of my
Definitely.
bands like I don't know, just because of the way we recorded or whatever, like sometimes it doesn't capture what the time was like. But I think especially with that record, Our House on the Hill, I'm like, oh, that really was like what the band could do, you know? So I'm
Fantastic
glad
album.
about that.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this guy Jacob Rubeck from
Yeah,
Surf
of course.
Curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were discussing that album briefly. I just had him on last week,
Oh,
and
cool.
we are just saying like it's such a great album.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
That
I
rules.
mean that one's fantastic. I actually I was like I know that he came out on a cassette. I was like I wonder if I still grab that cassette, and luckily Woods it still had it up on their site. So I was like,
Oh,
great,
cool.
I gotta get it. Yeah, and I recommend for whoever's watching this that does not listen to it. I mean, definitely give it a go. I mean, that's great. As well as the I mean, there's two other releases, correct, or one other one.
Yeah, there's the self-titled first one,
Self-titled.
and then we had like a couple singles from that. So there's B-sides on those singles, like 7-inch singles, and then I think we did a like yeah, we did a single after Our House on the Hill from some outtakes. And then there was like a bunch of weird like yeah, some like tour tapes and stuff like that, you know, and just like demos and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and that Our House on the Hill, that was recorded out here in California, right?
Yeah, that was
In
like
LA.
yeah, that was when we were like the seeds of moving here I think were really planted, you know. Cuz the band had come out in 2011 kind of just to write. And me, Kevin and Cassie got a house together, and like um and we were like, I don't know, you know, New York was going through a lot of changes at the time, and we had a good experience. And then a year later, we came and recorded that out here, and like both times we're just like out here for a month, you know. And that was when I really started to kind of like be like, ooh, every time I'm there, I feel good. Like I'm connecting with like a lot of people who are working on music, you know, like, so yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. I mean, like it kind of came into frame lines. Like, is that why you moved out here? Was because of that initial, I mean, recording
Oh yeah,
session?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. 2011, we came out here for a month with Kevin and Cassie. It was awesome. And then 2012, we did a month and recorded. And then 2013, I came out with Kevin to play drums on his first solo record on Harlem River, and that was basically where I just stayed. Like I came out for 2 months, and I was like, you know, New York, like especially like we were all living in Williamsburg. Like we watched Williamsburg like change in a way that was like globally known. You know, it was like we were living through a really like freaky process where, you know, all our friends were, you know, getting priced out, and like everybody was just, you know, a lot of the, I think, damage was starting to assert itself in like people's like, you know, bad habits. Like, you know what I mean? There was a lot of like sadness at the time. And there was something about being out here. I'm like, every time I'm out here, I just work on a ton of music. And so it really was like a kind of like, this feels like a good place to like keep being able to do what I want to do, which is like connect with people and play music, you know?
Definitely. So when you were younger, can you still hear me? The mic made a
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
sound. Okay, good. Just making sure. When you moved out, you moved to the city from Long Island. Yes, I'm assuming that was
Yeah.
the natural transition. How much was your rent for the first place you moved into?
Oh, I mean, it's funny. Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it was probably like, I don't know, I probably got a room for like $450, like, you know, like with two of my friends. Then I lived in like a loft for like $500. Like,
Oh my gosh,
I mean,
that's
that, you
insane.
know, like, I mean, it's funny too, because I always, whenever I read old stuff of like, you know, from 50 years ago, they say what their rent was. And I'm like, well, let me see what it was today, you know, because they'll be like, I paid $60 for a place in the West Village. And you're like, well, what does that mean? You know, but
Inflation, yeah,
but
yeah,
it's still
definitely.
pretty relatively like you can see the difference, you know? And that was the thing, like, yeah, it was just a cool time, you know, it was a cool time where like we all, you know, worked and like played in bands, but like the rent was cheap and we could kind of like do our thing. And, you know, it's a big, complicated, a lot goes into how things change, and we don't need to, you know, get into everything, you know, but it was
No,
just, there
no,
was a
definitely
sweet
not.
spot for a moment that really like was, you know, I felt really grateful to be there, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It was. I mean, who was your contemporaries at the time over there, music wise?
It's funny, like, you know, I mean, like, obviously Woods and Vivian Girls and like all the bands on Woodsist, um, you know, and like White Fence we played with on like our first tour, you know, and then like, you know, that was like a bit, you know, like I think that was just that cool thing where like you're both fans of each other's bands and you become friends, and like, you know, they, you know, especially Tim like remains a really good friend now. And I'm trying to think, like, what was cool about it is like there were all these bands, you know, and some I can't remember their names right now, or like, you know what I mean? They only lasted for like one single or like a few shows. Um, but, and it's fun. Like I'll talk to Kevin a lot and we'll be like, what was the name of the band that opened the Glassland show? You know what I mean? Or or we'll remember like a song they had that was really good. And you're kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen for them. I remember like trying to think, give more examples though. Like Crystal Stilts was playing a lot. Yeah, you know, there was like the beginning of Capture Tracks too, you know, so there was like a
Sure.
lot, yeah, there
Yeah.
was a lot of that. And, you know, like, yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was just a lot. It was like you'd go to shows all week, you know.
Oh yeah, just something that happened every night for sure. Definitely. Yeah, that's a really pivotal point to be a part of that there.
Yeah, yeah, it felt like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel the same way when you moved out to LA? Were you like, all right, I mean, like it's a different scene, but it's something still
Well,
happening there.
yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. That's why I like wanted to move here, and that's why I loved it so much. And like, you know, it's funny, like we're just organically really working through all the bands, but it's cool. Like that was part of playing in Flatworms. It was the same exact thing. Like I met Tim and Will, their old band Wet Illustrated had played with the Babies when we were out here. And I was like, immediately, it was like, just for me, what I love is there's just a through line with all of this where like, you kind of just connect with people. You're like, oh, let's be friends. Let's be in a band, you know? And so I think when I moved out here, it was the same idea of like, I want to like play, it'd be fun to play a show, and kind of similar to the Babies. Like they were like, it'd be really fun to have like a punk band, you know? I was like, cool, you know? And like, but it was the same. It was just a very like, you know, the same old modest idea of like, it'd be fun to like play a show. Like then you play a few shows, you're like, it'd be fun to do a single, you know? Like, but I like, you know, everything's on pause, but I think LA, it really reminded me of that, where like my favorite thing is like kind of what I was talking about, where it's like, is watching new bands start and you just don't know where the journey's going to go. And maybe they only last for 5 shows because they can't get along, or someone got like a job they have to work, or someone went back to school, you know, but like there's that time where you're all kind of like excited to see what comes, you know? And I think that's always been the most fun time,
Right. I mean, speaking of a through line, I mean, you touched across a lot of the questions that I had.
Good, yeah.
I was gonna transition into Flatworms, and of course Tim. I mean, fantastic. And Will, I don't know Will that well, but eventually I'm gonna have him on, because I mean
Cool.
it's amazing. But yeah, Tim's the best.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, he's
such a
great.
nice guy. Such a nice guy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome though, that you're able to be on, I mean, like, both sides of the country with like a really pivotal moments in this I mean, a scene, or whatever you like to, I mean, just music in general. I mean, that's so fantastic. But so the babies last since from when, from 2011 to when did you guys stop playing?
Yeah, I think our first practice was in, I want to say like January 2009.
Oh wow, okay.
But we were just playing around and like doing singles. And then our last show was in October of 2013. It was right when I moved here August 2013. And then we did like one last West Coast tour. And then we played at, I can't remember the name now, but yeah, October 10th, 2013. And we never like officially broke up, is what we say. So the idea was always like, maybe we'll play again, and I think we still kind of have that idea. But yeah, so and at that point, like, I think like the first solo Kevin show was like literally a month later or something. I think Harlem River came out like October 2013.
Wow. So that, I mean, that was really back to back. Which was one of my questions. I mean, did you guys have an idea, like, okay, we're like, let's go do this, or did he like approach you in joining the band, or how did that come about?
Yeah, it was pretty organic. I mean, like, I think we learned, I think, through the babies that like we just loved working together and hanging out, and like I think we were just like very similar in like our enthusiasm for like all the stuff that goes into making a band happen, like all the details, or like figuring out the tours, or like figuring out the budget, and I think like and I think we just learned to like that we played together really well. So I think it was like things happened like very organically, like I came out to play on the first solo record, and we were both like loving LA and making all these friends, like like Tim from White Fence, and then Kate LeBon was out here, and our friend Hugh. Like, we were just meeting new friends and like just connecting over their music. And so like, and then it was just very organic. We were like, let's move to LA. So then we like moved in together, and I think it was always like just on to the next thing, and I just the whole time was just have always just been such a fan of his songwriting. And so to be part of it, I just felt like really lucky, and also just like really a very special, like I felt very tapped into what he was doing, and I felt like I could help, so it was just a very like cool thing. So, but it just moved like super organically, like we moved in together in August, and basically we're like, like I just felt like my role was to like really help him launch this thing, and move on to the next chapter,
Yeah. Did he express like he wanted to move on in a sense of not with Woods, but on his own
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
journey?
and I think, but that was like always, I feel like everyone always knew that, you know what I mean? Like, it never had to be like declared. Like, I think Kevin is just, he was just always so talented and always so like proactive. Like, it's not like Woods was surprised that he was like wanting to do his own thing, or even that I was like, I always was like, especially with the babies, I was like, well, Kevin and Cassie like are meant to always be kind of doing their own thing. It's cool they're coming together like this, but like, they're best served by like really just doing their own vision, So I don't think it was ever, there was no like rupture or like declaration, I think like everyone just kind of knew,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and yeah, I mean, and that album is just fantastic. I mean, what a debut album. How long did it take you guys to kind of formulate that and like write it and record it? What was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, he had the songs, I think he'd been working on them for a long time, and like, I think like with that, like much like with the babies, like he would have the songs, and then I think like the only thing I was there to do was just help him, you know, have a chance to play them, see how they sounded, like see what was working or whatever. I always felt like that was my role, like just to kind of be like either a cheerleader for it or just kind of like, you know, I've always thought like, you know, and I try to do this with like Flatworms too. Like I feel like my role is to give the person a chance to play the song like 10, 20, 30 times, you know, and really live in it, you know, and that's what I felt like I could offer. So, you know, it was really like written, and then we came out here and we're rehearsing a little. And I think what was really special about that record was like, it's like one of those recordings I always remember because it was really, you know, we recorded with our friend Rob, who had produced the Babies record, Rob Barbado, and then some other friends. And like, it was kind of the first time where I was like in the studio and things were happening naturally. Like things were like a little more improvisational. You know, the songs were like, like, I feel like forever it was like, we know the songs, let's bang them out. You know what I mean? And like, it was a little more like, oh, like, I don't know, just open to like
experimental for sure.
Yeah,
Just
what was
like
going on in the
open-ended.
room. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think like the song Harlem River in particular, like I'll always remember recording it because I was like, oh, this is what people feel like when they're actually having like a real moment in the song and it's being recorded, like you would read about, you know, like, whereas I feel like a lot of recordings, I'm like, did I get the drums right? You know, like,
so you just, you know, instinctively knew like this is great, like the way it's going. I mean, because that's like a 7-minute song, right? I give or take 7 minutes, like 30 seconds. Did you guys did you know it's like, all right, that's about as long as we're gonna do this, or was it just kind of really free and it's like
it was super free. It was super. It was the coolest. Like I have such a visceral memory of like being in the recording and just being like, I don't know, you know, I think with a lot of music, you're always like wondering how it felt when you read about like artists you love, like making music, and you're like, and I just remember being like, oh, this is like kind of what I've read about, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like, so yeah.
But so you got, I mean, did you have that like feeling like instant, like as you were playing this, like this is how it feels, or did it kind of hit you after you?
No, like while we were playing.
Wow,
I was like, this is really
crazy.
Cool. Yeah, like I think, you know, the journey with me with music too, like I've never felt like a natural musician. I still don't really. Like I don't think of myself as like that's something natural to me. I feel like I've always just like hung around long enough to kind of like pick some things up, you know, but I do think the best of it is when you have these moments where you're like, well, none of that matters. Like I'm just in something with other people. Like it doesn't matter how good I am or whatever, like, because what we're doing is just being made by all of us right now, you know, like if that makes sense.
No, definitely. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And that you were setting me up with so much transitions and just clean. It's perfect. But I read that you said that you started like really playing it, like really trying to play the guitar 2015.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? And I mean, to put out the amount of stuff that you've done with Night Shop, I mean, within these past years is insane. I mean, did you have an idea of like what you wanted to do for those songs already, or was it just kind of like in the spur of the moment, like, all right, like that sounds good, I'll work on that? Or
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like guitars were always around, you know what I mean? Because I was always at band practices where there's guitars, but I never like sat down and played a guitar. Yeah, really till like 2015. And
that's unbelievable. I just wanted to let you know, like that's like,
cool,
when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that. You never hear that. I've never heard that. I mean, that's insane. That's really.
Thanks, yeah.
Do you feel comfortable with it? I mean, up until now.
Well,
I mean,
you know,
right
I think what's cool about it, like kind of what I was talking about at the beginning, is like there has been this kind of like thread of like DIY or punk ideals to all of it. And so when I was younger, like you didn't wait for permission or wait for like talent to do stuff. You just kind of like went with the feeling, you know? And I think like even now I'm like, I like secretly, I can't really play the guitar, you know what I mean? But I play it enough to do what I want to do. And I feel that way with like drums too. Like I do always want to be getting better. Like I do take it seriously, but I'll just see other kinds of musicians and be like, wow, I hope when I'm older someday I can do that or whatever, which I like that spirit. But I think for me, it's like I've been saying with all this stuff, and I think it's been really helpful, is like, it's almost like always just the next indicated action or like the next thing. So like, you know, like I was like, oh, like I've been writing some songs. It'd be fun to like do a demo tape like I used to do and like make a tape. Cause I used to, you know, like with all my old bands, I'd like make mixtapes and send them to friends, you know? And I was like, I love that like thing. And, you know, at the time, like, yeah, people were doing tapes and stuff. I was like, that'd be cool. I could do a tape, you know, like it's always been about like, and then I did a tape and I was like, I guess I should play a show because then you can have a tape release show. You know what I mean? Like, and it was that LA thing too, where I played with Shannon Lay, you know, who was like my friend whose music is amazing. And I was like, that would be so cool. I could play with Shannon, you know, like, and it's like all these things that are like both small things and big things. Like that's not so I played with her at like a record store and I had my tape and like, that may seem like not a big deal, but like
No, it's
when you're
huge.
in it,
That's insane.
yeah, when you're in it, you're like,
great.
that's all I want to do. All I want to do is just play a show and have a tape, you know? And I think like, I think it's been really helpful to me to just kind of always just kind of be like, what's the next thing I would want to do? That'd be fun. I'll do that. And I'll just say too, like forever, I really wanted to write prose, you know, like I was always, especially like after I stopped working at the Times, like I was like really trying to write fiction and I was trying to write like creative essays and, you know, really was like thinking that's what I should do. And what was funny about like playing guitar and writing songs was like I would do it as a like break and I'd be like, now I get back to real writing or whatever. But then like I had a moment where I was like, all I want to do is play guitar and write songs. It's what I love. And like that's writing too. Like why am I treating it like less than? Like, you know, like this thing that I'm goofing off doing while I'm writing these essays that like I don't really like and I don't enjoy it while I'm doing it and I don't want to show them to anyone. You know what I mean? Like, so I think for me, it was really this like cool moment of like, well, this is writing too, and this is what I've always done. So like, I think like, you know, my story too is like, with all this stuff is like, I have tried to like, I don't know, like think that music wasn't for me. And at a certain point, I probably have to stop because I'm not, I don't know, whatever. And so, you know, much like when I got that job at the Times, like I thought that was kind of the end and it just wasn't. And the same thing, like with writing my own songs, like I kind of was, I don't know, you know, it just keeps coming back. So now I'm finally like, I accept it, you know, like.
Finally. I mean, it took a few years, but you came around. That's good.
Well, it's all this internal shit. Like,
of course.
Things you think you should do, and you know,
and
like,
second guessing and doubt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know, I think that's the hardest part is being like, well, I'm not good enough to do what other people do, so I shouldn't even try. And you know, like I think a lot of that, weirdly, even though I had done music my whole life, like that stuff is like tricky. It'll still be in you in weird ways, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and the your process of the, I mean, kind of thinking that you're leading a double life in the writing process. I mean, it's really just a subset of the same thing. I mean, which is, I mean, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. Where did the term night shop come from?
Good question.
I appreciate it. That's what I aim for on this. I mean, usually I mean, there's some dumb questions, but this is, I felt like it was a good one. That's why I wrote it down. I got it right down.
Perfect.
Right.
You got the proof. Yeah.
I mean, I got it. I got the notes.
You know, like, I think mostly it's just aesthetically, like I just am like obsessed with like, you know, late night diners and like bodegas and like 7-Elevens and like just weird kind of spaces and cities that like I've just always been gravitated towards. Like just there's some like comfort in it for me, or there's some sense that like something's still going on. And you know, so in Europe you would always see, they're called night shops over there, so it was the same. Like anywhere I am, I'm always kind of looking for that, you know. And then there's also like a Fugazi song called Night Shop that it's not really about that, but also like I don't know, that was in my mind too, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a very kind of catches your attention. I mean, just by the name alone, it's great. Yeah, I noticed that all of of your albums, the Fountain, In the Break, and Night Shop, just the self-titled, they're all in front of, I mean, convenience stores or night shops. Where were those pictures taken? I mean, around LA, obviously, but was there certain places that you went to and you're like, this would be great for an album cover?
Yeah, I think like both times, like my friend Abby took the first one for In the Break, and then my friend Jeff did the one for the Fountain. And like both times, like the fun for me is like, let's get in a car and just drive around and make it like a fun night. You know what I mean? Like, and
Definitely.
just look for cool spots. And I think like, so, you know, both of them, we took photos at a few different spots, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this is cool. But I think the fun of it for me is like the same stuff of like, I just really love, I think like I'm at my happiest where like I'm getting together with someone who's like work I really like, and we're doing something kind of goofy and like sort of juvenile, you know what I mean? And like, but who cares? Because we're making something, you know, like I think that's always like the best, you know, and like you're being a little silly, like you're like walking in and out of a convenience store and someone's taking your photo, like it's so goofy, but like there's something very sweet about like we're both excited about this, you know, like and both times were just really fun evenings where we like just stayed out super late and like, you know, had a lot of coffee and like got snacks and stuff, you know, like I just always like really want to, I think that's the enjoyment of it for me is like you're engaged, you're with like serious people and you're both being kind of silly and like having fun and hopefully making something cool, you know?
Yeah, super. I mean, it seems like organic things, processes are very important to you. I mean, and it seems like you really stuck with that, which is fantastic. I mean, I feel like a lot of people can't pinpoint what they like to do it within projects. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they like doing the project and they like the result, but I mean, it's really great that you know like exactly what you like to do. It's like this is how I like to do it, and that's fantastic, really.
Yeah. I really am on this thing, especially like as I get older with music. And, you know, like if you're not enjoying every aspect of it, or if you're not enjoying it, I don't understand the point. It's not like it so has to be baked in. Like I only, and I know like there's different paths in music. You know what I mean? Like there's paths where people make amazing, great things, but they're terrible to be around, or you know what I mean? Or they
No,
make amazing,
definitely.
great
Yeah.
things, but they are miserable all the time, or whatever. And like, and that's somebody else's path. I can't really speak to that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what's going on with them. But like, I feel very lucky that like I'm just hardwired to be like I just want to have fun with people I care about and like really like admire, and usually good stuff comes out of that, you know, like
I don't see
because
how
it's
I
not like
can't. Yeah,
the goal is to
exactly.
enjoy my life, or the goal is to like really receive the gifts of like art, right? Like, and I'm not saying like every day is amazing, you know what I mean? Like it's not like false positivity, like there's fucking ups and downs, you know, but I think like the whole idea was always that like music and art is like this escape and like a place where we can kind of like make make something that we want to inhabit, and so like I think that's always got to be like the way for me, you know what I mean? Like, and again, like I'm lucky, like I, you know, like that's, yeah, I definitely, I don't take it for granted, you know, like,
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, it's like you always hear about the tortured artist, dilemma. But I mean that's fantastic. It's really refreshing to hear that. Really, I mean, like that's your mindset and your outlook on it is
yeah. And like,
fantastic.
I mean, you know, again, like I don't know what roads people have to walk, you know, people have different shit they're struggling with that I'm lucky enough to have like either worked on, you know what I mean? Like, or you know what I mean, or just didn't have, you know. So it's like I really try to just keep the focus on like my lane of doing things, because like that was something I never liked about like, you know, punk, or just like things can get really judgmental or get really closed off, you know. And like there's so many rules, you know. And I think like I'm not into that. Like I love so many different kinds of music and so many different ways of doing music, but I also think like everyone has to kind of just like figure out the path that's actually going to be sustainable for them. And so like if the goal is like I want to do this forever, well, how do I do this forever? Like, okay, I need to enjoy who I'm around. Like, and then for me, like as I get older, like, you know, I had my own shit that like just like mental health shit and like physical health stuff. I really had to like address if I wanted to keep doing this, you know. And like, you know, I've written about it before, but like I had to stop touring for a year because I was like fucking getting whacked. You know, it was just wasn't good for my health, like on either front, you know. And like I think like I'm constantly just making sure like, is this working? Is this sustainable to do forever? Like, or okay, cool. Like, what would need to change? Like, I can't act the way I acted when I was like running around on like a DIY tour eating out of dumpsters and like, you know what I mean? Like, cause then I'll lose my mind and I won't be able to do this. So, you know, I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, I mean, yeah, you got to keep yourself in check, definitely, and you need to take some time off to appreciate it and to go back with a better mindset. I mean, that's what I gathered from it.
yeah,
Am I
yeah. And
thinking
I
that?
think too, like what's kind of cool, I think what I'm seeing in music now is there's a lot more talk of like mental health and like artists like really advocating for themselves, you know, and kind of like you'll just see it a little more like bands taking breaks or people like, you know, needing to like tend to that. And it's really encouraging because I feel like I've lived through a lot of scenes where like it was really a lot of tragic shit happened, you know, a lot of like, I don't know, you know, so I'm encouraged by that. You know, I think there is more of a sense of like, how can we like kind of look out for each other and try to make this as sustainable as possible, you know?
Yeah, and that's really important. And yeah, um, yeah, it's an interesting, not resurgence, but kind of like attention towards the health of side of, I mean, making music in general, and this has been a really kind of it's been put in the point of view of, I mean, obviously other bands and their fans and whatnot, which is it's yeah, which is
Yeah, and
great.
it's so like it's just really exciting for me, you know, because I'm like, oh, cool, that'll make it so more people can do this and like do it in a way where they don't sacrifice their like health, you know. So that's part of the fun of like for me, like having been around, you know what I mean, as I get older, like I've been through all these different scenes, and it's like I think like I always want to just really be excited about what's new and what's going on now, you know. I think that's like another thing I really try to guard against. And I think what's exciting about what's going on now is that like, you know, my friends and my community now in music, like we're all talking about this stuff of like, you know, yeah, like mental health and like, you know, just like trying to, yeah, live in ways that like are allow us to like continue to do this thing. And I think like classically like music, yeah, it's been insane, and there's still ways it'll be insane, you know, or there's still ways that it'll be like trying or difficult or like a strain, you know. But I think that's been a really cool thing in the last few years to kind of see that as like part of the dialogue, you know.
Very, very special. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I mean, do you view Night Shop as your own personal band and kind of performance? I mean, like, did you did you ever see yourself kind of branching away from a group mentality towards just a singular, like, these are my ideas, I'm gonna put them
Yeah,
out?
yeah. I think so in a way that like, you know, I mean, I always want to try to make it collaborative. Like when I have people play on the records, like I try to let people kind of do what they would do because I pick friends who I really like admire their talents. And the same thing with like, yeah, like Abby or Jeff who took the photos, or like, you know, my friend Kevin did the videos, like, and then Jeff did some too. Like I want people to feel good to like make stuff, but I think for me it's really like I, I would say this, like it's been very healthy to have to declare like, okay, like I need a thing that's like pretty much mine, and that allows me to be a better player with other people. Like I think it allows me to be a better bandmate in Flatworms, or like, you know, like when I do get together and like do a one-off thing with Kevin, like I feel like I'm so like I was always present, but like it allows me to be present in a different way because I feel like I'm tending to like my own desires to like have something that's mine, you know. And I think like, yeah, I think it just like helps music overall if I'm like, this is just going to be my little place where I like, I think the whole idea of the project has been like, I kind of want to write the weird shit or do the shit that I want to do, and I don't have to run it by a band because maybe it's kind of corny or whatever, but let's just see how it feels, you know. Like I think it's been an experiment in that, you know. But I think like for me, like, you know, one thing I just really had to realize about myself was that like I'm not, you know, like I have some personality that makes me a good backing player, but I don't think I have the best personality to be a backing player because I've always been so like, I want to be involved. That's the fun, you know? And I think like, you know, like I think I'm limited in how good a backing player I can be because I'm just so used to like, we all like throw out ideas and stuff. And like, I think like it was important to me to like be like, cool, I need a place where I can get that out. So then when I do play with other people, I'm not like, I wish I was doing my thing, you know, and I never wanted to be like that, you know? So I think it's allowed me to like show up more for others, you know?
Yeah, which is great, and it kind of it seems like it kind of like rejuvenates you into doing that, and you need to have that sometimes. You need to have kind of like a new, fresh energy to do
Yeah,
that kind of
totally.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I did like played a show with Mike Kroll on drums last year. I played like drums for Anna St. Louis like last year or now 2 years ago, whenever. And you know, and when I do play with like do something with Kevin or whatever, like I'm so excited, like because I'm like, ooh, I get to like do this. And I think like before I was really doing my own thing, like right before I started doing it, I think like I had desires to do it and I didn't even acknowledge them, you know, and like and you see that like I think I'm like always an advocate with like musician friends for people to just like put out their own stuff or like, you know what I mean? Just like, I don't know, you know, because I think sometimes like I did it. I was like, well, I don't really have anything to offer, so I'm not going to do anything. And I think that you get kind of stuck, you know?
yeah, and I mean, everybody gets like that, and I can only imagine like how it is in that sense of, I mean, being a part of so many projects and trying to work on your own. That, I mean, you need to find a way to kind of release from that.
Yeah. And like, you know, I didn't need to until I did, you know what I mean? Like it
Sure.
worked, it worked, it worked, it worked. And then like that year I took off, I was like, something's not working. This is what I've always done, but I'm I'm pretty like I'm not happy and I try to never like let it affect the people I was around, but I could see it coming, you know. I could see it coming that like I was just going through shit, man. You know what I mean? And I needed to really like again, I'm really glad that it luckily I was able to kind of stop and recalibrate before like it became a burden on other people, but you know, like it's like you always got to I don't know, like if you really want to do this stuff, like any pursuit of like your vision or like, you know, the things you're trying to do, like I think it's always good to just continually like check in and be like, is this working? Is this working for the people I'm with? Cool. Okay, good. You know, and if it's not, like, what can we do about it? You know?
Self-assess, yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
key. Yeah, definitely. um Speaking of different projects, I mean, you mentioned Flatworms. I mean, I'd love to get into that. How did that come about? What was the origin of that?
Yeah, I mean, again, um like I said earlier, like, yeah, I met them through Wet Illustrated, and I like, yeah, the Babies played a show with Wet Illustrated. We played like an afternoon show, and then the Babies had a night show at this warehouse in Pomona. And I remember Wet Illustrated, like the three of them. Actually, I think it was when they were four piece, but Will and Tim and Robbie, and I think Chris was there, came to our show to hang out. Like, and I was like, that's so cool. Like, they already played the show. They could have just gone home, you know what I mean? But they just wanted to
Sure,
hang out and like get to
sure.
know us. And like, yeah, I just thought that I always thought they were very sweet and like very kind, you know? And so yeah, the idea was like, let's do a punk band, you know? And same thing, like let's like play house shows and play warehouses and you know, and it like everything else, it's like everything I've said with all these other bands, like it just kind of the next thing comes, you know, like let's do a 7-inch and then like, you know, like let's do a tour in the UK, and then the UK tour was awesome, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's a really cool thing. I'm like, I don't know, I'm grateful to play with them, and I think like it's definitely a band, we all contribute, but it's also cool to like in the ways that Will like is, you know, writing the lyrics and like really coming with like the songs, you know. It's cool to just like be a part of like nurturing his vision, you know. But then I get to play with Tim, who like teaches me a lot about like just like being a musician, you know. Like that's what a lot of what I get from Tim is just like how seriously he takes being a musician and like prepared he is and like how much he practices. And you know, like I love that, and that's stuff I didn't really have, you know. Like I think so it's cool, like yeah. And I think I don't know what I give them, but hopefully something.
Yeah, I mean it's great. It's great, and it's so interesting to see a three piece playing in this fashion. I mean, I feel like I don't see that enough, and it's fantastic. It's great. Um, yeah, I mean, and that's again so great that it was a natural progression of things, very organic. I mean, do you feel lucky that you have like came across most of your things like organically? I mean, most of these projects and how it's
Yeah.
developed and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was funny too, because I think I always have this thing of like, if you like, if you just hang out and are like kind and like open hearted to like what's going on and like legitimately excited for what people are doing, like it all kind of works out. Like, I don't know, like I remember every scene I've ever been in, there's always been just people you come across where they're really bitter, or they're like, they're like, it's all who you know, or you know what I mean, they're so down on music, you know what I mean, and they're all like got some fucking reason why it's not working out. And like in my mind I'm like, I just fucking hang out and like make friends in a really sincere way, like, like you just gravitate to who you fucking click with, and you don't care about all that stuff, you don't, and then like then you get to do fun stuff, like, you know what I mean, like I just
No,
never
definitely. Yeah.
never
I
approached it like I want to get something out of this for me, or like, like it's just like it's like you see a band play, you're like, this band rules, and then you like talk to them, you're like, and they're cool, and like, and that fucking spirit is the best. It's why I love being around like scenes, it's why I love like, I don't know, just rooting for your friends, or watching a band they play their first show and it's like pretty sloppy, and then like 2 years later you're like, oh my god, like that shit, like I sincerely, like that's what is so exciting to me. And so as a result I'm like, yeah, just hang out and like fucking be excited for other people, and like you'll get all these things that you think you want to have happen for you, like.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great way of looking at it, really. Um, how is it having an article written about you in Rolling Stone? Like, that's insane. How did you feel about that, about Night Shop?
Oh
Out
yeah.
of all things, I mean, were you like, what the fuck? This is amazing.
I was, it was super cool. I think like I'm really like, I can't really like, people say this a lot, but like I literally like the whole experience doing my own thing is extremely terrifying for me, and I hate, like I have a very like tortured relationship with any attention. It really freaks, like I don't know. All of it is to say like I have to be like, oh that's awesome, but then I'm like, I'm what are my errands for the day? You know what I mean? Or like I think
Can't
a lot of
bask in
it,
it.
a lot
Yeah.
of the reason I don't think I ever like really did my own project was like, I think, and maybe we've touched on it a little bit, like I do have like, I'm still working through a lot of like shame or like fear of like expressing myself. And that's why I think I was always trying to like stop doing it, So I think like, I try to like, I try to have very limited relationship with like social media and like just reading about what's going on, because it, in a very sincere way, like it's fucking debilitating for me. I feel like a shame. Like, I mean, I don't want to get too into it, and I know we got to wrap soon, but like, I have to
We
take it
could.
all.
I'm on your time, sir. I'm not
Okay, cool.
in any rush.
All right, let me see. Okay, yeah, I got to split fairly soon, but
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
just,
please.
yeah.
Yeah, do
Um,
yeah.
but like, I have to treat it all really loose, and kind of like, and again, that's been part of my journey with like, my fucking mental health and stuff is just like I really try to keep things in the day and be like, oh, that happened, that was really cool, like now I'm gonna go get a coffee or whatever, like
On to the next. Yeah, you can.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I just think
bask in it.
there's so many landmines along the way that you can throw you off, and for me those would be, yeah, it's very hard for me to like share what I'm doing, like and that's been the thing I've tried to overcome with all of this,
I mean, let
it's
me
just
tell
like,
you, it's awesome. It's great.
cool, thanks
I
man.
love it, and I mean, obviously, other people love it. I mean, you're enrolling. That's amazing. I'm just
Yeah,
telling you, that's
cool, yeah.
great. That's great. I don't want to stress you out though, but that's
No,
awesome.
no, no, no. I think it's sick. I'm really like grateful for how it's all going.
Oh
Like
yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, you've obviously been touring, I mean, for quite a few years now. Is there any tour stories that really stick out to you? I mean, either in the earlier years or later years, like, is there any one particular, a couple stories that are just like, oh, I remember that time, or anything like that?
I mean, that's hard because it's like it's 20 years. It's like 21 years, and I've toured every year.
Really? Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I even
impressive.
got
That's an
one in
impressive run.
2020 because I went to Europe with Kevin, and I opened and then would play drums on some of his songs. So we did that in January and February of
Wow,
last year. Yeah,
made it in.
I know. I don't know. I feel like I would need a prompt or something. I mean, there are a lot. I don't know. Let me like.
Sure. No, it's no pressure on you or anything. I mean, like, but that's it. That is a major chunk of years to be. I mean, a part of music
I'll
and
say it is
playing.
the ones. I'll give you two. How about that?
That would be
Or I'll
great.
say like when I think of like touring, I think of like they're like when my first band, The Insurgent, we first did that 9-week tour, and we stayed at this punk house in Pensacola that was like it just and at the time my like hero, this drummer Aaron Columbus, lived next door, and like literally like my like idol, you know what I mean, like, and he wasn't around that much, but I like got to meet him and hang out, and we stayed at this house where there was all these musicians, and they would make like fucking potluck dinners, like vegan potlucks and shit, and like we stayed there for a week because we had no shows, and like and I remember I was like, the world has opened up. Like these are like artists, and they're living life on their own terms. And I remember we went back a few months later, and a friend's band came with us, and one of the people in that band, it was just one of those funny moments where like he was not into the vibe. He was not into the potluck, and I remember he went and got like he went and got like fast food and slept in the like the Jeep like 4x4. Like he wouldn't sleep in the house. He wouldn't eat the food. You know what I mean? And like and like he was just, and I just had that moment of like, this is not like, he won't be long for this life. You know what I'm saying? And in a total gentle way. But I was just like, and I feel like I was talking about it recently. I was talking about it with Kevin recently. I'm like, all along the way, there are those moments where you just, you know, it's not for everybody, and I get it. And also like people have their own shit and limitations that will make it just too hard to dive in. But I feel like I've always been lucky to be like, yeah, okay, like this is what's happening now. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
I've had so many moments along the way where I'm like, they may not be here next year for whatever the next journey is with like music, and that's fine, you know. And it's the same thing like where I was talking about, like you see that bitterness come in, right? Like you see people you've known in music forever, and they just have that fucking like bitter, complainy tone, and you're like, it's the same thing. I'm like, they might not be around for a while. Like they just don't have it in them anymore to like really appreciate how fucking lucky we are. You know what I mean? Like it's been my tip this whole year. Like I'm just like, it's really hard, but like if I'm not in fucking gratitude for like how lucky I am and privileged I am to do this, then what's the fucking point, you know? So
Right.
I'll just share that one, I guess, you know?
That's great. That's great. And I know you got to wrap up, and this has been perfect. But real
Yeah, I
quick,
appreciate it.
let me do these promos real quick. In the break, the Fountain Night Shop, all available at nightshop77.bandcamp, right?
Yep.
.com. That is the thing. And Flatworms also great. And you guys are getting money from that too, right? I mean, from all the Bandcamp streams.
Oh yeah, all our stuff's on Bandcamp. Yeah.
Great. And that's at the flatwormsmusic.bandcamp.com. Is there anything else you want to plug real quick before we go?
No, I'll just say that I can't wait till it comes back, you know?
Yeah.
Can't wait to meet you in person, you know?
I know, one day.
And, yeah.
One day. We're gonna do it. Yeah. Well, anyways, Justin, thank you so much for being on, man. I really appreciate it. It's
Thank you. This was really fun. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I gotta have you back on. I'm gonna stop recording, but I'll talk to you in 1 second.
Okay.